My name's Furman. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's always fun when I come to these because when I tell people where I'm from, I always get a little chuckle because I'm actually the elementary principal at South Park. And as you know, the cartoon has made us relatively famous or infamous. And I don't know anything about the cartoon and never really watched it. So when my wife and I named our second child Kyle, they found that to be particularly amusing. So I am the father of Kyle from South Park. This presentation is based on a new publication that KySTE just put out called the Future Ready Challenge. And really what it's meant to do is challenge your way of thinking about the education that we're dealing with our kids from now through their future. And it's one of those things that it's sort of at times a hard pill to swallow. Feel free to question me, challenge me, because that's how we're going to learn how to get through all these ideas. And all of these things that we know are going to be necessary changes. If we like them or not, there's still things that we need to be able to look at in terms of the future of our kids. Feel free to live tweet out anything that you want. My Twitter is @drfurman. So if you wouldn't mind adding me to that so I can read some of your ideas and thoughts as they're coming through, I'd appreciate that as well. So, we talk about changes, and it's always interesting to think about how much things have changed. But, we've said that for a lot of years. And I've gone to conferences 20 years ago, and they said, oh, times are changing. Well, yeah, times are changing, but have you ever really stopped to think just how dramatic those changes are and how influential those changes are on what we're doing with our kids? And that's the interesting part when you're looking at change. Look at this, brave people right to the front. Thank you. That's so much better. I love it. Come on up. Because our seniors this year were in second grade 10 years ago, right? So second grade, come on in. Second grade 10 years ago. So we're not talking about, when your parents were children and things like that, long stretches of time. We're talking when our seniors were in second grade. Here are the things that were different. There was no iPhone. There was no iPad. There was no iCloud. Just 10 years ago, folks. Blockbuster. Remember Blockbuster? That was still a place where you could go and buy videos. Netflix was not this worldwide phenomenon. There was no such thing as a Chrome browser. Now it's standard issue for us, right? Pokemon was the largest video watched at 7 million. Now the largest video watched on YouTube is 2.5 billion. That makes major changes for our kids. And again, it's not like times have changed since my parents were in school. It's times were changed from when I was in elementary school to now I'm in high school. That's not a lot of time to see this dramatic of change. And we've got to roll with these changes as teachers, or else we're going to get ourselves in a big old crunch. And we talk about, for those of you that are pre-service teachers, I know we have several pre-service teachers here, I was talking with them earlier, when we talk about backwards design, we talk about the idea of creating even just a lesson with the end in sight and those type of things. When you're looking at education, how are we supposed to do that? How are we supposed to look at a K-12 education with the end in sight? What is our end? And that's where it gets really tricky when you're dealing with looking at full programs of education, because we don't know what the end is. And backwards design then doesn't work. So we can't come up with an end in mind when we have no idea what the end result is going to be for these kids. Because again, remember, by the time our second graders hit their senior year, what's going to be the next iPhone? What's going to be the next iPad? What's going to be the next iCloud? So how do we prepare our kids for something that is so just completely and utterly unknown? And that's why digital skills, that's why you hear about, they're usually called 21st century skills. We're trying to get away from that because we're in the 21st century now, so we like to call them digital skills. That's where those come into play. Because regardless of what happens, regardless of what comes about with these kids in their future, we know those set of skills are going to make the difference for them. And that's why it's so important to layer these skills into what's going on. And then there are so many different versions of these skills. This is the set that I use. It is from KySTE. It's their digital age skills. But the quote is what's particularly interesting. And if this doesn't rock you to the core, then you got to check your pulse, especially as an educator. We're currently preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems that we don't even know are problems yet. So think about that. We're trying to prepare these kids, starting all the way back in kindergarten, for all of this stuff that we just simply don't have a clue. And yet we're still trying to do it the same way that we've done it for how many years, since the Industrial Revolution. And in there lies our problem, is that we're still trying to teach in a method that just doesn't exist anymore, in an era that doesn't exist anymore. So you need to start talking to yourself, and you need to start thinking to yourself a little bit, what type of educator am I? What type of educator am I going to be? And how do I feel about all of these things? So we created a tool, and you can get it. It's a digital integration attitude survey. There's the Google, or anything that I'm doing here, you can get right off of my website, robfurman.com. It's all there. It's a lot easier. So you're more than welcome to take pictures of the slides, keep the links if you want, or just go there, and it's all there. And I'll talk more about that at the end as well. But this sort of gives you an idea of where is your attitude towards these things. And really, we set them up into 4 areas. The resistor. Do you think we still have resistors out there? The person that says, I'm going to do my worksheets. I'm going to do it the way I've done it for 20 years, and that's okay. I was really starting to feel, because I do a lot of these presentations, I was really starting to feel that we were getting beyond that. Because I was every time I come to these conferences, I'm around sort of the saved, the people that believe in this stuff, the people that want to do this stuff. So I was starting to feel pretty good about this. Like, oh yeah, I think we're getting through. Well, then my son hit 8th grade, and one of his teachers gives him a worksheet every day. It's facts and figures and social studies, and he makes me study, and I lose my mind every time I do it. And I try to keep my mouth shut because I want him just to get through the system, which may be my own fault. Maybe I should be complaining more about it as a parent. But so it does exist. And in an open house, this guy said to us, again, I was ready to lose it. He said, "This is the way I've done it. The kids learn this way, and this is the way we're going to keep going." So I'm just like, all right, well, I feel like a total failure. This nothing we're saying here is getting through. But he is an absolute resistor. And then you've got assisters. Those are people that want to do it and maybe are nervous to do it, or not sure if they can do it, or not sure if they want to take the step into doing it. They're the ones that they're willing, but they're maybe not able. And then you've got your enlisters. They're willing, they're able. Those are usually the people that are willing to go and help those people that aren't assisters. But they haven't taken that next step. And that's where I'm hoping that all of us will take that next step. And those are the people that are persisters. Those people that understand the need for technology, use the technology, but don't just use it for the sake of using it. There's a purpose behind it. And the purpose is the idea of creating digital skills and getting these kids to have those experiences in the digital skills. Because just to use technology for the sake of using it is sort of pointless now. And we used to say that not all that long ago. Even as a principal, I used to say to the teachers, get some technology into your lesson. Well, why? I mean, yeah, back then we did it because it was cool. Back then we did it because we wanted the kids to have the experience. Well, they had the experience now. They come into kindergarten knowing the iPad better than you do. So just accept that and move on. Half of them already know Minecraft, can get through those worlds better than all of us combined. So the idea of them just doing it as an experience really isn't a valid reason for using it anymore. Now we need to be able to use this technology for a purpose. And that's sort of a little bit what we're going to go over here, is what is that purpose. But the underlying factor is to give them an experience that they can't necessarily have without it. And to enhance those digital skills so that when they do get into that very, very unknown future, they're going to be prepared for whatever's thrown at them. Because it's sort of like the idea of the layer cake. If you don't know how to use this technology, the technology that's coming next is only going to be more complex and more detailed. So you really sort of have to know what's going on just for the sake of being able to know what's coming up. So take that. It'll be interesting to see how you do. And if you want to share the results with me, my email's on my website, and we can certainly talk about whatever results come up. So this is my book, shameless plug. After this, I am going to do a book signing, and she's back there. She's going to help me get that all organized. But this is through KySTE, and it's 18 weeks of challenges. And every challenge sort of compounds upon itself so that you can, by the time you're done, you've got 18 changes in your classroom or your building. They get progressively more difficult and things like that. Every challenge is based on the skills, 21st century skills. Every challenge in the book comes with examples and samples. And the biggest thing is there's a support group. It's sort of like, Weight Watchers program, 12-step program. There is a support group on my website. It's on a discussion board. robfurman.com, go to the blog, come down to the board. And so we can all sort of support each other in these. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go over just 6 of these challenges. I can't go over all 18, I don't have enough time, but we're going to go over a few of them. And I hope to get your blood boiling a little bit. I hope to poke the bear a little bit to see if I can get you guys to give me your opinion on some of these things. And when we are discussing these, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a manner that is appropriate and polite, and we can agree to disagree, but it's fun to get that conversation rolling. So please feel free to challenge anything that you disagree with. So the first one is fairly simple, but yet it's something that we don't seem to do, and we really need to just start being cognizant of the fact that this is critical. And that's the layer cake. Whenever you're doing a lesson, we always have that base skill. What do we want to teach? We call that usually our standard, right? What standard are we teaching, or what skill are we teaching? And then, for years, we always have put on top of these classroom skills. And we don't even realize that we're doing it anymore because it's second nature, which is how you're passing out the paper properly, classroom management skills, attitude skills. What are you doing in terms of how you're maybe even working with groups in terms of collaborating in a seat, moving desks, moving around the room. All of those other things that we're teaching the kids that we really have gotten to the point where it's second nature. As a kindergarten teacher, I'm an elementary principal, as my kindergarten teacher, we know that those skills do not come naturally. Like, we do have to teach them that when they come in, how to take off your jacket and sit down in a chair, because when they come into kindergarten, they don't necessarily know that. But when you get into the older grades, all of those lessons just sort of automatically get assumed and wrapped up into the lesson. And that's good, that's how it should be. What I'm saying is we need to add a third level now. And it needs to get to the point where it's just as consistent as our classroom skills that we're teaching on top of our base skill. And that's a digital skill. That is either collaboration or communication or creativity or critical thinking or problem solving. Any one of those number of digital skills needs to just go right on top of that lesson. So you'll always have your base skill, you'll always have your classroom skill, and now you're going to add on top of that a digital skill that you're learning as part of your standard. So I'm not saying that we're not going to teach standards. I'm not saying that we're not going to teach your content. What I'm saying is make sure you layer it with a digital standard, because that's how these kids are going to be using all of this material for the rest of their lives. They're not going to be using it in a paper and pencil method. They're going to be using it with these digital skills layered on top. And they can handle it. We know that. I'm going to grab this water real quick. So another one, which is always one that has a tendency to get people a little bit wound up, is the idea of grades. Grading, unfortunately, is sort of a big joke. It doesn't work. It probably has never worked. Back in the days when it was popular, people liked it for other reasons than what it was really intended for. And if you look at this, congratulations, you received, I'm concerned, you got that, but you did okay, you got that. Does that mean anything to anybody? Does that mean anything to anybody? Does that mean anything to you? What does it mean to you? If I say, oh, I'm concerned, you got that, does that tell you, or let's say you're a parent as a child, And I said, your son got a squiggly mark. I'm really worried. Does that tell you if he knows math? No. And it's the same thing with a letter grade, folks. A, B, C, D, F. If I said A, that usually means good. If I say F, that usually means really bad. B, C, and D in the middle is even more vague because it's kind of good or it's kind of bad, but it doesn't tell you anything. And that's sort of back to the conversation of data, because we're always talking about the need for data to drive our instruction and data to be our push for how we teach these kids. But then we give parents something like that, which tells them absolutely nothing. So we need to relook at our grading. We need to relook at how we communicate with parents and how their kids are doing. One of the best ways I think we need to do this is through student-led conferences and data tables, which is nothing extraordinary, nothing out of the ordinary. A lot of people do it. It really needs to become the norm, because we need to be able to sit down. The child needs to be able to talk with a parent and say, I know how to do this. I don't know how to do this, and I may need help still with this. And the teacher should be right there saying, yes, so here's the plan. I'm going to help you learn more of this. We're not going to worry about this because you already know. That's the conversation that the parent, child, and teacher need to have. Not you've got a squiggly line and that's supposed to mean something to me. Anybody want to argue with this yet? All right, well, I do have arguments, because when I do this, I always get people arguing. And so these are my yes but slides. And if you have any other good ones, I'll add to it the next time we see this presentation. I'll add yours up there. But so here are some of the ones that I've got so far. Parents want to see grades, and that's absolutely true. That is absolutely a fact. Parents want to see grades. There's two things that we need to accept as educators that may not be real happy in the eyes of parents. Number one, it's not about the parents, it's about the kids. So we have to accept that as educators. It's not about you, even though a lot of parents want to make it about them. It's not about you, it's about your kids. And number two, we need to re-educate them, because it's not their fault that this is all they know. It's all we know, for the most part, right? For the most part, we all know what A, B, C, D, F means, because that's what we've been ingrained in. It doesn't make it right. It's time to make changes. So we need to re-educate them on what does it mean. What is a skills-based report card? What is a student-led conference in terms of skills and understanding what your kid knows and doesn't know? Challenge the parents. Ask the parents, if I tell you your kid has a B, can you explain to me in detail what your kid knows and doesn't know about second semester, 8th grade math? So if you got a B in second semester, 8th grade math, can you tell me what your kid knows and doesn't know? Probably not. So you've got to help them through it. You've got to teach them what that all means, where that all is going. The other one, what about class rank? And that's always an interesting one, because there are certain laws that we have to follow, right? And that's always a good time when you're dealing with state and federal government. When I got to South Park, one of the first things I did was push for a skills-based report card. We created it, we went through all sorts of different examples. We had it approved by the school board. We were ready to go, done with grades. We're going all skills-based report card. Within about 4 months of that finally being approved and all that work, the state of Pennsylvania came down and said it is required that you give kids a letter grade, because our student management system in the state requires every kid to get an A, B, C, D, or F. And it will not compute, it will not equate if you put anything else in there. So all that work we did sort of went right by the window. Even though we still use it, we still have to give the letter grades, because our PIMS, it's called, organization requires that. That goes back to sort of the class rank. Yes, there are class ranks. Do we need a class rank? Does academics have to be a challenge? Does it have to be a competition with everything? Is there a need to say I'm number 1 versus number 2 versus number 3? I don't think so. And again, I think that's a cultural shift that we need to educate our community on again, where it doesn't matter if you're number 1 or number 10. Yes, but what about scholarships? Well, then we get into higher education, and they need to get with the program as well. Because again, it's not about who's got the highest rank. If you want to do a scholarship, Do it based on the skills report card. Who's got the best skills? Wouldn't that make more sense than who's got the best number anyhow? So there's some logic to this that you can work through. Is it an instant fix? No. Can you make a difference in your classroom and try to make a change in your classroom? Absolutely. You can do every one of these in your classroom starting tomorrow. Of course, you're still here at the conference tomorrow, so start Monday. We'll give you a day off. But all these things can be done within your world, within your realm. Avoid the wash, rinse, dry, repeat cycle. This one drives me really insane because as educators, probably one of the biggest fears that I think I hear is the idea of technology taking us over and cyber schools taking us over and all of those types of things. Well, it's going to happen if we don't make changes because any computer can do this cycle that we see a lot. How many teachers do you know do this? The kids come in, they've got a bell ringer activity. They finish up, they review it, they check it. They check their homework, they do the next chapter in the book. Even if it doesn't make sense that that's the next chapter, that's the one they do because it's next. Then they do a group worksheet, individual worksheet, homework, wash, rinse, dry, repeat. They keep doing the same thing over and over again every single day. It's the exact same pattern every single day. Those teachers can very easily be taken over by a computer, especially with the way artificial intelligence is moving right now. I can even make a computer ask a personalized question just for you that would be different for her, and I don't even need you in the room. So if you want to not be taken over by computers and artificial intelligence, then we've got to be the human factor in the classroom. And that's get out of this cycle. Be creative. Give your kids an opportunity to do something different. Give them projects. Give them ideas. Let them be creative. Let them do all of these digital skill things that we're talking about. That will make a difference. Raise your hand if you remember a great lesson in elementary school that somebody taught you. Raise your hand. Give me one. Give me a great. Tell me a cool lesson you learned.
Well, it was more like middle school.
Middle school, that's fine.
We did like where we could create our own experiments in science class.
Build your own experiments in science class. Excellent. Anybody else? Give me another one. Way back there.
Elementary school, our lessons of learning multiplication facts were always musical dances.
Musical dances. That's awesome.
And I can still
You gonna show one? You gonna share one with us?
No.
No.
But I can still remember the tunes and the
You can remember them though. That's excellent. Do you want?
I did. Mine was over the 5 senses. And it was every day you only use the sense that you were studying about to learn about something in the environment. Everything else, she was able to have you shut it down to discover your senses. Lots of hands-on. It's really good.
Very cool. Mine was 5th grade. We did a colonial day where we had to dress like colonial kids. The teachers treated us like colonial kids, which was really rough. We had to do the whole rail and the mortarboard thing. We had to eat the food, the whole 9 yards. It was a whole simulated day. And those are all really cool experiences, and we probably all learned something from those experiences, right? Okay, now, could somebody raise your hand and tell me the best worksheet you ever did in elementary or middle school? I'm out. I can't think of any cool worksheets. That's because they're boring. They're lame, and you don't learn from them. So we really need to get beyond that. I mean, just with that little example right there, you can see what's memorable and what's not. Okay, we need to get to the point where we have a little more memories than we do books of worksheets. So avoid the wash, rinse, dry, repeat cycle. Save time by removing unnecessary lessons and skills. This is always an interesting one because it's one of those ones where we hear a lot people say, but I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the time to do that. Well, we need to be creative with our time. We need to think a little bit more on what we can get rid of and what we can keep. You know, for example, spelling. Maybe it's time we get rid of spelling. Anybody want to argue that?
Yeah.
Please, come on.
How are you going to get rid of spelling?
How are you not going to get rid of spelling?
How are they going to do anything else, reading, math, if they don't know how to spell? If they can't spell, they're not going to be able to read.
So that's not entirely true. Have you ever seen the one where you take the first letter and the last letter and you can read the entire passage? Spelling is just a means of communication. Spelling is just a means of communication. When you're dealing with typing right now, which is what most of us do, it's spell checks. Not that you wouldn't have to learn the mechanics of it, obviously, but to have to learn half of the dictionary of how to spell it, that gets ridiculous. You need to know the mechanics of all of these things. You don't need to be drilled to the point where you know how to spell a 35-letter word, because you just don't do that anymore. We don't do it anymore. Our computers do that for us. We know how to basics. We know the mechanics of it. We don't need we don't need the repetitive nature of doing a spelling class for 30 minutes a day.
I agree with that.
Come on, that's ridiculous. Handwriting, that's always a good one. I saw something come out on the Business Insider about handwriting making it come back in elementary. That's bullcrap. It is not. So time to get rid of handwriting. Come on. Anybody want to?
What do you mean by handwriting? Like
I mean
printing?
cursive handwriting. Time to get rid of cursive handwriting.
I say they're quite big and like they have good penmanship, and I don't think we should do it. But
Get rid of it.
how are they going to fill out job applications for them?
We don't. When you're about ready to fill out a job application?
Yeah.
Pretty soon?
Everything's online.
By the time it's all online.
High school, you're still doing like.
I still think.
Why would you do it in high school if you don't?
Most of mine were online.
It's an art.
Again, think about it. If you're going to do it for high school, what's the point of doing it if you're not doing it for the real world? Job applications are online now. You can even digitally sign things online now. Now, when you're dealing with handwriting, this is a touchy subject, I know. And I always love discussing this one because it's an interesting one. But you don't need it anymore. For that matter, I could even take it to the next level. I could even argue that you don't even need printing anymore. And it will come to the point where very soon you won't even need to type anymore. Now, as teachers, we start to panic like, oh my God, what's this guy saying? This is ridiculous, right? No, but it's not, because we need to think about the nature. We got to get back down to the core of what are we doing. What are all of those things doing? What is handwriting, typing, talking, printing, all of those things? What are we doing? What is the base form of what we're asking the kids to do? We're asking them to communicate, right? We're asking them to communicate, right? We're asking them to communicate and answer, typically, an answer, right? So, as the teacher, are you more concerned about how they're communicating or what they're communicating? I'm more concerned about the skill. So if I'm teaching them a skill, I don't care how they communicate that they know the skill, as long as they communicate that they know the skill. If they can draw me a picture and I know they got it, fine. Type, text, handwriting, scribbling, I don't care. The idea is to communicate the skill to me, that I know that you know. So does it matter if they use cursive or printing or typing? No, because we're worried about communicating the skill. And that's the important part, and that's the part that people get hung up on. Now, I will give you a little caveat for those of you that love your cursive handwriting. I personally love it too. I find it to be a very beautiful form of art. And I would love to see it going into the art class as calligraphy, because it is still an artistic form. There are some fine motor advantages to being able to do that type of movement. There's some advantages to the creativity of it. It just doesn't need to be your base form of communication. That's the difference. So keep it. Put it in your art form. Put it in your art classes. Just don't make it a 40-minute-a-day class where you're teaching this, because it just doesn't, we don't need it anymore. Think about the Egyptians. I bet you they were really ticked when we got rid of hieroglyphics. They were like, oh my God, what are we going to do without those little birds and symbols and stuff? You know, eventually it happens.
But now then we do have to rely on experts that can
Exactly.
interpret what they say to us. So if we
Exactly.
lose these skills, we are going to lose
We're going to,
reading historical documents.
absolutely, no, we're not going to lose the historical documents because we'll have experts that will read it.
But we'll have to trust them as
Well, yeah, trust I know is not a big thing in America right now, but I understand that. But yes, you will have to trust the experts to tell you, just like we do with hieroglyphics and Sanskrit and all these other things. But yeah, there will ultimately be experts that read these things to us, absolutely. And that's the hard thing for us, I think, right now, is that we are in that transition world. Like, we're the Wild West of education right now, because we don't know where any of these things are going. We're just sort of hoping for the best. Like, when they look back and they write about us, they're going to be like, man, they got this right. And boy, they really screwed these things up, you know, because it's like writing back to the West expansion, you know, writing back to when they used to right out into no man's land. They didn't know what they were ending up with. And we're in the middle of that right now. So it's sort of an exciting time to be in education because everything's just changing. Computation. Any math teachers here? All right. Was I texting you before? No. I have a math problem for you. I got to show you at the end of this thing so we can figure out how this math problem works. But anyways, so maybe it's time to get rid of computation, folks. Maybe this is one of those things where it's just sort of outdated. Okay, we don't use our handwritten math really anymore. In the real world, we use computers almost universally. In education, we use people to calculate, almost universally. So if a kid's always going to be using computers and calculators and things like that to do math, why are we forcing them to do the computations over and over and over again in our building? Okay. Now, what I'm not saying is, look at this. So instead of rote learning these long division procedures, which nobody does anymore, we just don't do it. Maybe we should look at things like picking holes in statistics, traffic systems, secret codes. Those are the things that are interesting to the kids. Because algebra, for example, like the problem my father and I were working on the way down here, that's my dad, by the way, he's my traveling companion. It's a math, it's a magic trick is what it is, but it's all based on math. That's where it becomes fun. Because it's like, wow, it looks like magic, how's that working? Well, it's all done by math. Am I going to learn how to do this by constantly doing 6 to 10 pages of long division? No. We need to start getting rid of all of this computation in math. So math, you're much a culprit of this as anything else. And then of course, yes, but. Am I saying we don't learn math? No, of course not. Am I saying we need to get rid of pages and pages and pages of computation? Absolutely. It's application over computation. Teach them how it works, what it does, and how we use it in the real world. Now it's an application. But just sitting here and doing math problem after math problem after math problem with no context as to why it works or how it would work or what's the point of it is fruitless now. We don't need that anymore. Because now we have computers that do all that. We need to know when to use it and when to put it in a computer and what it's going to give us and what it means when it pumps out an answer. But the actual computation of it now is gone. We don't need that anymore. Any thoughts, math teacher?
I agree with that. And I say that I'm more concerned with can they use maybe a formula. I'm a high school math teacher. Can they use the formula as opposed to memorize? And I think to get there, like you said, we've got to get the next level on board. We've got to get ACT on board. We've got to get colleges on board because they're not application. They are still computation.
Yeah, and that's the hard part when you're dealing with any changes. How do we get the change moving systemically through the entire organization? But what I'm saying to you is close your door. You got 30 kids, 40 minutes, whatever. Do what you know to do right, regardless. Because that's where it has to start. It's going to have to start in your classrooms.
Lots of kids too have great computation skills and have no number sense. When they have no number sense and have those skills, they are going to suffer when they get higher algebra. I mean, they're like, it kills them when they get to upper level math.
Yeah.
But that's just because we've not taught number sense.
Right, and that's very much what I was taught. I mean, it was all computation, but I have no understanding of how it works or why it works. I'd love to, because I'm trying to figure out a math problem right now. So I would love to have that understanding. So here's an easy one, right? Toss out the textbook. The textbook is supposed to be a resource, and there's so many teachers still using it as their curriculum, where it's turn the page to the next chapter. This is the next chapter. If you took that book away from them, they would absolutely not be able to teach. They would lose their minds. They would be done. Like you'd find them crying in the corner, cuddled up, not being able to move with 30 kids around them because they've lost the textbook. We've got to get beyond that. Textbooks are a crutch. Get rid of them. There's so many wonderful things out there now because of technology. We have an entire conference on it, right? Right now that we're sitting here that gives you all of these resources. Dump the textbook, get out of the textbook, use it as a resource just like you would a piece of technology. It's not an everyday thing. The technology shouldn't be an everyday thing. All because McGraw-Hill takes their textbook and throws it up on a computer does not make it technology all of a sudden. You know, use all of the different resources. Be the creative teacher that you wanted to be when you came out of college. And try to make every one of those days something interesting, something exciting. Yes, but content is still tested, and that is how teachers are evaluated. Well, that's the unfortunate truth. That we are still bound by standards. We're still bound by the evaluations. However, there is some light at the tunnel here. There's things called prioritizing standards or power standards, is what a lot of people say. In Pennsylvania, you've got like 62 standards a year. Well, that's insane. I mean, we'll never master 62 standards in a year for one child. It's just ridiculous. So you have to prioritize. And you have to be able to sit down as a group and say, okay, where are these 5, 6, 10 critical standards for this group, this age group that's developmentally appropriate, ready to go? We want them absolutely mastered. Which are the ones that maybe they'll touch on several times over the course of their school career that maybe we don't have to be as concerned about this year? Because you have to be able to prioritize your standards so that you are getting mastery on the right ones and touching the other ones that are appropriate. Because yes, we are still bound by law, of course. And how teachers are evaluated, that's where you have to hope you've got an administrator that has a little bit of common sense, that lets you take the risks, lets you take a chance. Maybe the lesson fails, not the end of the world, at least it's something that you can learn from as well. And that's where you need to have that conversation with your administrator and say, can I try this? Can I do this because I want to see if it's going to make a difference? And then I'll show you the data that says either, yeah, it worked, or, ooh, that was a bad idea, you know, one of those type of things. But you need to get your administrator involved so that they're part of this process as well. Teach students how to debate. How are we doing on time? What time are we done here? What time? What time are we done here? Yeah? 11:30? 11:20? All right, we're good.
Yeah, I think it's 11:20.
11:20?
Just got 15 minutes.
All right.
I'm gonna go get all the good drinks.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. Teach students how to debate. And especially in light of what's going on in our world right now, I think people need to really revisit the idea of debate and how to do it constructively, how to take constructive criticism, how to put out a factual argument and be able to debate back using facts. Our kids have lost that ability. And a lot of that's due to the fact that we had the No Child Left Behind Act, where we had multiple choice questions, where as a child who lived through that, you had one question and you had 4 or 5 possible answers, and you were guaranteed that one of those was correct. The world doesn't work that way, does it, folks? Wouldn't you love to have a question like that? I mean, wouldn't you love a parent to come up to you and say, I have a problem with my child. Here are 4 possible answers. I guarantee you one of them's right. You just got to pick the right one. I'd love our world to work that way, but it doesn't. But that's how this generation has been taught to answer a question. I'm guaranteed one of them's right. That doesn't work that way. So we really need to get back into debating and discussing and being able to accept being wrong, accept being right, and being able to discuss those things using factual materials. This is an app that I want you to check out when you get a chance. If there's anything you take from this, it's this. It's really cool. It's called Countable. It deals with debating and structures based around real bills in Congress. So you can see there's all sorts of different bills. These are active, real bills that are in Congress right now. You can use it in any subject. If you're talking about science, go to aging. If you're talking about math, economy. If you're talking about music, social studies, whatever, arts, culture, religion. So there's every option possible there. You could do this with any age group. I actually did it with second graders, and I had them debate, is magic a national treasure? And there was another one there, should we go back to the moon? So they could discuss that at a very young age. And then obviously you can have some pretty heavy duty ones that your high school kids would be able to discuss. Does the president need to be blocked from launching a nuclear first strike unless Congress declares war? Bless you. So there's a gamut here. And ultimately what you want them to be able to do, and on the website you can see the yay and nay on there, they give you all sorts of resources that are for it, all sorts of resources that are against it, and then of course at that point they can do their own research and have their own conversations. And it's interesting because these kids get really good at this. We started this about 2 years ago. We really started talking about this app in my whole district. And now we're having a huge debate actually next week when I get back at the high school using this. So I'm really excited to see how they do and how it works out, because it's nice to have the kids start having these factual conversations again and be able to use your brain on the spot and be able to debate and discuss. So it's a great platform to get a lot of material. And it's a great way to already have a good starting point on the yays and the nays and that type of thing. Okay, so just if you want to follow me on anything, I do have a podcast series. You can go to robfurman.com/iTunes and subscribe. It's all of my thoughts and rants and everything else sometimes. And then also I have a video series with a friend of mine, Virginia's technology group. They're VISTI. You guys are KySTE. They're VISTI. He's the president. He and I do a video group called The Seditionists, where we really get into sort of the hot topics of education at the time, discuss, debate, and those type of things. It's interesting. Feel free to check that out. That's robfurman.com/YouTube. And then there's all my other contact information. If you need anything from me anytime, please feel free to call me. I believe in all this stuff wholeheartedly, so if you have questions, feel free to contact me anytime and we can discuss it. I can give you more ideas. I think we're going to go down to the reception area and we're going to do a book signing. If anybody would want one, you're more than welcome. If not, please feel free to give me a call anytime. Thanks.